Right at 6:30. Councilor Blum, you're mayor, I might add. Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order then, since we're a minute late, and I'm sure Kat will find her way. Introductions and agenda review. Let's see, where should we start? Let's start over here.
Got William Bailey, Chiefs County Sheriff's Office. Eric King, City Event. Nick Wheelock to Chiefs County.
Tammy Bainey, CYC.
Patty Dare, Deschutes County.
Megan Perkins, Bend City Councilor.
Daniel Winter, City of Lupine.
Molly Heist, Neighbor Impact.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, Mickey Derby, City of Bend.
Chris Ogren, Houseless Response Analyst with a Coordinated Houseless Response Office.
Carrie Prosser, City of Sisters.
Okay, Chiefs County Commission. Sean Bennett, Community Ad. Lynn Warren, Community Ad.
Let me already understand the bulletin.
Ashley Smith and perfectly on fit.
Glenn Wisely, Executive Director of Bethlehem Fit.
And Amy Brady, the City of Bend.
Thank you, and people online?
Kat Zwicker, City of Redmond.
Andrea Blum, City of Sisters Counselor.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead, agenda review. Let's go to item number 2, approval of minutes and review of financials. Do we have any comments on those?
Chair, I just wanted to confirm that when Wisling's public comments stated that Birch project is fully at capacity. Was that true?
That was not true.
It's not.
I know, I was gonna bring that up because I re-listened to it and she said they were approaching phase 3.
Phase 3, yes.
Yes, so anyway, thank you for that.
I will fix that, thank you.
Let's see. Oh, and I had another comment. It's not the minutes, but the phone number. I called the phone number and I would improve the message on your phone number for letting people know that you've reached this number. We will get back to you, but we do man this phone on Tuesday, Thursday, so that they actually know, because so many times you can call it, you have no idea who you've called.
Yes.
And if you've left your number at the right place, and especially if we're dealing with homeless people, so that's just my feedback.
Yeah,
I did try that number and I thought, wow, I would love for it just to be a little more helpful.
That's great feedback. It's live answered from that time frame, but as providers have it during
Right.
their week, they do return voicemails.
Yes, I know.
But
So I
yes,
just,
more
I was-
information is better.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Anyway, I always love to call numbers. Make sure I call the right thing. So is there a motion then to approve the minutes as corrected?
I will move to approve the minutes as corrected.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes sound as corrected. Okay. Eliza Wilson.
So Eliza is not here today, and since Neighbor Impact is the HMIS lead agency in partnership with the Homeless Leadership Coalition, I was going to respond. If you'd like me to read the letter, I certainly can. Chris and Eliza didn't think that was necessarily necessary.
I think we all received a copy of it, adequate time to be able to read it. Did anyone ask for it? Did you all read the letter?
Yes.
Okay. All righty.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So in terms of kind of working backwards from the bottom of the letter up, looking at capacity around the unhoused data manager position, that was on a 3-year Central Oregon Health Council grant. The sustainable ongoing funding through the HUD Continuum of Care grants that Neighbor Impact holds for coordinated entry and for HMIS administration only total $90,000. And as we know, that's about enough to pay for 1 FTE plus benefits. So the need is there for the in-house services data coordinator, the HMIS specialist to ensure that end users are well trained and data quality is high. And then there's been a lot of conversation alongside the HLC and in partnership with them, but really somewhat focused on the MAC group agenda and impetus that has been given to that group to create more capacity around the coordinated entry. So having more days potentially that we could answer that phone, to integrate the long-term rental assistance programming in there. So this has been an ongoing swirling conversation for a very long time. I think that the ask here is that without additional funds, which there are some, I think, set aside in the MAC funding. And I hate to call it that, but it's just got so many inputs that creates a nice bucket for you.
Okay, we're talking about the most recent MAC funding, the 2.3 million, which was given another week to extend the applications for.
There are multiple programs that are flowing through the MAC process, and there are some carve outs for data and coordinated entry in each of those. So I don't feel like it's an urgent ask, but the sustainability and the continuation of that in order to really build the robust data picture that we all are looking for across Central Oregon it's imperative that we look at some sort of a sustainable funding source.
So are we talking about a calendar year then, the final year of funding, is that through December 31st?
It's actually a very strange cycle. It started in August, or no, it started in September, so it's over in August.
August 30th.
30th
Of this
Okay.
year.
of this year.
Soon. Thank
So I believe that wanting that public facing data along the lines of a really robust and interactive dashboard that the public and electeds can go to and drill down and sort and look at the data is really a huge goal and has been for a long time for this region and for neighbor impact and the HLC. So just wanting to let you know that we hear you. We acknowledge the need. There are so many inputs and parts and pieces right now in terms of, I love that Eliza outlined in here that the HLC has a primary commitment with this HMIS role and those funds that I outlined totaling $90,000 to get all of our federal reporting regulations met. So we've got point in time, housing inventory count, the longitudinal systems analysis, and the system performance measures that we are responsible for and the HLC is responsible for. And that continues to bring in that $900,000 in HUD continuum of care money. So if we don't meet those benchmarks, we would be non-competitive for those funds. And it will also weave into the youth demonstration homelessness project that was just granted to the region. So we hear the ask. There are a lot of partnerships going on. PSU is doing a lot of things. Oregon Housing Community Services is doing a lot of things. So I think integrating all those parts and pieces is what we're in the midst of. Want to acknowledge again that Eliza and I have had conversations. We'll continue to have conversations and come back with a clear proposal and ask or timeline and ask around priorities, I think, and then funding opportunities and to see where the gaps are and where the CRO might be able to lean into them. And then we can potentially look at those priorities in alongside what the CRO really wants to see, because I feel like this is kind of a general ask. So drilling down into all of those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I know that good data is a really key component of our strategic plan, and if there's a way that we can use CRO's financial resources to assist, I know I would be in favor of investigating that, because I think it benefits all of us, not just those of us who are in the system.
And I believe that in partnership with COIC, we've developed a continuum of care. There's so many acronyms. Coordinated entry specialist job description, and that person would be tasked with expanding the coordinated entry system, and also because it's a direct integration, working again, really focusing on the Built for Zero work. Any other questions? Granted, I'm pinch hitting and Eliza made them. We talked briefly.
So I actually have this map from last August. I spilled my latte on it this morning, but it survived.
Yay.
And I was going like, okay, this kind of gave us an idea of, these were estimates, but it was actually, you know, the boots on the ground. What do we think we're dealing with? Remember that one? I'd saved it. So is it something that financially June is soon enough if we investigate whether our group can come up with extra funding if we come back in June?
Yes.
In a month?
Yes.
Okay.
So the job description for the coordinated entry position, if we have an understanding that there is a financial strategy for that, which I think there is in the MAC group, at least for a time period, that we could move forward with that and then be able to really address that and maybe, maybe form, I cringe to say this, maybe form a smaller data work group The HMIS committee does exist within, and the coordinated entry committee within the HLC, and those are probably good resources to tap into initially. But invite the Crow people that want to be involved, whether it's staff or board members, to join that conversation.
To talk about exactly the types of.
To talk about the
data we're
pieces that we really want to
Yeah.
see, so we're just not doing a scattered approach, and we're really focused and prioritized and staged. Because it's gonna take a minute, but I think once we get it built and running, operational, that it will be a valuable tool that really just needs maintenance and upkeep. Which would change then the ongoing support needs.
Yep.
So.
I like the idea of a subgroup.
Great.
Yeah, and a little,
Yes.
thank you. I would recommend that we also include Pacific Source. They're looking for a way to sustainably support this work. And I think the data area is an area that is of particular interest. So they have community funds that they can invest as well. So
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's a good positive step forward. Because we do want our data. Thank you, Molly.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we actually have the search update. Thank you so much, Glenn.
To show just show a brief little clip here, to give you an update. We might get a concert update too, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bottom corner.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, but I think those.
Is Guinevere working?
Oh, yeah.
You know, maybe, I don't know. Is she back working? I met her aunt in Seattle.
I don't know how to.
Well, it's
So this is
technology.
just a 2-minute little update on where we're at in Birch. Giving some examples of how this program is serving differently. We've had some recent media coverage that
I've seen them all at 5 a.m. Yes, they were good.
okay, I'll let that take away.
Last week, we told you about the Bethlehem Inn High Barrier Shelter in Redmond temporarily shutting down due to a lack of use.
And now the operators say they have a plan in place to use the facility to meet the needs of homeless in the high desert transitioning into more stable housing.
A lot of work is being done with our current research and due diligence on trying to evolve from a shelter program into a longer-term housing program.
The Bethlehem Inn hoped to open up this new program anytime between now and January. The goal is to help people who are trying to move from shelters into long-term housing. Through this program, those working on that transition will be able to stay at the Bethlehem Inn for as long as 9 months.
So this was not the most recent one, so I might have sent the wrong one. I apologize.
Yes, that's the one.
sorry.
Wait, she was still working before she had the baby.
Yeah, so I'll touch upon in the just the brief presentation. I've been able to speak in the last couple of public comments with a 2-minute kind of synopsis. But like I said, wanting to really share what this difference is. Oftentimes in the media, this transition in this program gets equated to transitional housing, which is a very specific HUD term, which this does not fit. We are really transformational, and that fits within our mission statement of transforming lives together with Shelter, Help, and Hope. And Bethlehem Inn works very closely with over 70 partner agencies. We've been involved in the CROW, in the strategic plan, HLC, the MAC group, the Redmond service provider. So we continue to see what the need is. And in the next slide is really where we understood as Project Turnkey came about and we seized this opportunity, a lot of shelter beds were created on this left end of the continuum. And what was missing is that middle piece there where, many mobile parks had gone away. There was no longer extended stays in hotels. So we needed to provide a longer term option that could help to meet. And some of those, the village concepts have also helped in creating that possibility for folks. So on the next slide, we just give a brief overview of how we've gone through the process we are part of Project Turnkey. I'm leaving for a 2-day conference right after this here in Bend, and a number of those Project Turnkey projects have not been successful. And the idea was to really create something that was going to be sustainable and longer term. So these were just some of those steps. On the next slide, these are some of the research items, places that we've gone, different locations that we took upon really while we're still running our Bend shelter and housing people there to see how other people are doing this successfully. And that was really important. And this was touched upon last month, was the recent Portland State University study that talked about how a model such as Birch is what is helping people to be successful. And we are actually experiencing that success. The next slide is really copying this from Vision House in Seattle, but it's what is going to create stability for individuals. The population we are serving in Birch is are individuals who are homeless. They are below the AMI and are struggling not just with homelessness. Oftentimes it is disabilities, as well as employment challenges, and of course the housing challenges. So these components in this equation are what we're looking at in order to break that cycle of homelessness for those individuals staying at Birch.
So is it going to be 9 months like the film clip said?
You know, we don't have a set time. We really work with each individual. Each individual is unique. We've seen some great successes of people that have moved on. You know, someone who came in who barely could make eye contact and literally carried their belongings of the world in their backpack. And by the time she left, she was driving her own insured car, had housing, had a job when she didn't think anybody would even hire her. So each individual is very unique in that sense. But they have to understand what the expectations are and how they are helping themselves to move forward. And we'll continue to work with them on that.
So Gwen, originally the county funded it $900,000. I'm wondering, what is your capacity for the revamp program?
Currently we have 30 beds in the 21 rooms. So we do have some that are double occupancy. So we work with individuals. Oftentimes it is helpful for them to have a roommate, to have some of that accountability, and others are feeling that autonomy and independence of having a room for themselves. So as far as the services that help with this, in the next slide, you know, we touch upon relationships, resources, safe housing. These are the kinds of things that we build our programming around and help from our partner agencies, and how we help individuals help themselves really expand in these areas. And the main pillars that are listed in the program in the next slide. And this is an example of the gentleman who was actually in the recent story.
And that's that whenever.
Okay, we can end with that one then. But there's health, there's home, there's purpose and community. And that home really is that stability, that they have a place that they can know that they have until they can, you know, find something that they can move, that we can help them move on to. And that is really the key. They're no longer in that fight or flight. They have something to look forward to and a place to call home. And I think the others are just a few just pictures of what the different rooms look like. This is just our community guidelines that everyone signs up for, making certain that they know they feel safe, respected. There's participation in how they take care of their own healing and resilience in that process, and a culture of kindness. And then a few pictures, and then we can go to the quick film clip. This is a single occupancy room. It's got a microwave, refrigerator, place for storage, their own bathroom. And a double occupancy that has some separation, but also a chance for some community.
Oh, Kat's hands up. Kat, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm going back when you had mentioned that the facility here in Redmond has 21 rooms and 30 beds, and I believe Chair Adair had kind of actually specifically asked how many of those we had occupants in. Do we have a number yet for our occupancy rate?
We have, as I mentioned last month, we opened up for external referrals, and that process is underway. So we have a impartial group that looks at the applications. So Bethlehem Inn is not selecting those. Those are in a pool, and those individuals are being signed up. So I believe as of today, we have, let me see here, about 25 or 7, depending on the intakes. And then we have another round of applicants coming through that will be scheduled for intake. So what was mentioned in our minutes from last month is we anticipate that we'll be at full occupancy by the end of this month. And we have again had some successful exits. So as those exits occur, we'll be filling those rooms as quickly as possible as the applications come in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. I was wondering the same thing. How many exits then? How many successful exits?
I just go based on the month. I just submitted my report. So for the month of April, we had 1 exit to housing.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So it's a longer term. So as people stay in, we look at creating that stability, but also creating, you know, an opportunity for those that are truly looking to be in a safe, stable, and sober environment.
Do you do any kind of follow-up for the next like 6 months with your program?
That is a staffing challenge,
Right.
really, to be able to do that. It's one of the things in the going on 15 years that I've been doing this. I wish we had that capacity. And hopefully it's something that we can eventually look at doing.
Yeah, because I've heard that's a bit important for some people, that really they need that follow-up phone call.
Yeah,
So anyway, great. So now we have this video.
Yeah.
Thank you.
However you stay active and wherever you get your rush, there's a good chance Hooker Creek was already there, putting the highest quality materials into the project.
It's actually a pretty big relief off my shoulder for the housing, since it's a longer program.
Under a new transitional model, the reopened Redmond Bethlehem Inn is finding success lifting people out of homelessness permanently.
We're seeing about 5 of 7 people leaving to permanent housing.
The inn previously saw less demand as a high barrier emergency shelter, so they closed back in October to open its doors again, trying something different.
We have fewer beds now than we had there, but we're actually serving the same number of folks.
Up to 30 at a time, folks like Emilio, who says he has everything he needs here.
And here's where we come for breakfast in the mornings, nice hot meals, so you really can't complain about that.
Stability to secure his very first home.
This program wasn't here, probably be back on the streets. That's where I was at for a while. But because of this place, it's giving me hope again.
Before Bethlehem Inn, Emilio was homeless for nearly a year. And now he says he's very close to finding his permanent residence through Housing Works.
I've never really had my own house, my own. Always lived with somebody or something like that, but it'll be a big change in life.
The program's success stems from its accountability, which includes community involvement and weekly case management meetings.
So how you been this week?
Fabulous.
Yeah?
Watching somebody actually pull out of that cycle that's keeping them trapped in homelessness, watching them leave this place with a car, some new clothes, a job, stepping into permanent housing that maybe they haven't been into for several years, it's remarkable.
Do you believe you'll ever be homeless again?
Long as I keep on doing what I'm doing, I don't think so.
Peyton Thomas, Central Oregon Daily News.
Any other comments, questions?
I was hoping to give everyone that little brief tour, but I invite you to come take a tour, come see firsthand and, help in the advocacy that we need in doing something different. And that it takes time to be able to do that and grow into that. And look forward to be able to share some of the data and the great successes, because it keeps our staff and our volunteers very excited about being a part of the strategic plan that I know is going to be covered later, but we are very much involved in steps or the priorities 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I just want to say thank you for, like, pivots are really hard, and I definitely know it's a challenge for a lot, but you clearly filled a really key gap in the system, and so thank you so much for doing what you're doing. It's really great to hear how successful the program is, how many people it's helping, and I'm here to support however you need to support.
Well, we appreciate the positive media and thank you for all the stories and the attention. And
I just wanted to know if we could figure out how to access information. I've looked on the website, the BI website, and can't find information about BERT or how to access, or you said it was finally phase 3 was open externally. How does that, how do the service providers access that?
we want this to be, because it is required by the city to be a high barrier shelter. We have a lot of people that just come knocking in and, they're currently housed, but they see there's an opportunity. They could maybe live here for free and we're subsidizing these homes. So we have sent that out to our Redmond service providers and it should have gone out to HLC as well. And we want that to come through because we want people to have a clear understanding of what the expectations are. We've had a couple people who came in and said they were all about, wanting to be in this program, but in the end weren't able to live up to, being clean and sober. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. All right, so let's go, Chris. The RFQ. I'm sure that's why some of you are in the room. Thank you for joining us.
Right. I am Chris Ogren, the Houseless Response Analyst for the Coordinated Houseless Response Office. And Stephen, would you mind stop sharing real quick? Thank you. Okay. All right, I am here to provide an update to the results of the RFQ process. So I'm going to start with a high-level overview, and then we'll talk about the tiers that the review team kind of broke projects into. I'll do a high-level overview of each project and offer some opportunities to ask questions, and then I'll share the kind of full summary recommendations of the review team, and we'll ask the board for their guidance. Okay, as a refresher, we received 7 submissions from the CHRO RFQ. The total amount requested across all projects for startup costs and 1 year of operating would be $4.5 million. All of the applicants were local. There were 4 safe parking projects, 2 tiny home village projects, and 1 managed camp project. All of the projects proposed either the utilization of private property from Deschutes County, or property from the city of Bend. So the intergovernmental review team was comprised of staff, 1 staff person from COIC, 1 person representing the Homeless Leadership Coalition, and then 1 person representing each the city of Bend, the city of Redmond, and Deschutes County, for a total of 5 members. Each reviewer reviewed and scored all of the applications, and the recommendations are broken out into 3 tiers. You'll see tier 1 is recommended to move forward and is shovel ready at this moment. Tier 2 is recommended, but the reviewers felt that there was a little bit more information necessary to kind of ascertain where those projects were in their timeline. And then tier 3 is not recommended to move forward at this time. So we're gonna start with the tier 1s. The first project that I'll be reviewing is Oasis Village. So Oasis Village proposed an expansion of their current tiny home village. They're requesting funding to add 10 more tiny homes or micro shelters to their established village. They had a clear plan that laid out what improvements would be paid for. They provided a clear timeline and a detailed budget showing how much everything would cost. Their total amount requested is $494,000, and that's inclusive of startup costs and 1 full year of operations. Questions that the reviewers had were whether or not the shelters that the state of Oregon had set aside for COIC in a kind of a previous agreement would work, or whether Oasis would need a different type of shelter unit.
Can you explain that? I don't understand that. You mean set aside?
So that's the 1.3 million in pods that the governor has
pods.
committed, so that's
Yeah.
really for the region,
Okay.
primarily for this effort and likely for Bend or Redmond, so it's sort of. Down.
And so it's not a question that would, prevent them from going forward. It's just like a little bit more clarity that
Yep.
wasn't called out in the application that staff felt it would be good to figure out if that would work or not. And if it would work, it would likely reduce potentially the amount requested. And so this was recommended and shovel ready. The second project we're gonna be.
Chris,
Oh, yeah.
on their financials, I thought it was interesting, the unit cost for, let's say, electrical was 25,000, and yet when they took it forward, they made it 28,000. Did you notice that when you were analyzing this?
I think that the budgets are really high level, so what we had asked applicants to do is like, give us as much detail as you can, but acknowledging that ultimately a project may not move forward in the process. We didn't want them to spend too much time putting together a really detailed application for the RFQ and more
Right.
so for the RFP. So I think there's some little things like that throughout applications.
Well, it was just interesting because they did it on 2 items. They put a unit cost and then they added more money to the total cost. So I just thought it was something interesting.
Yeah, that'd be something
That
we wanna ask
I
more
wouldn't want it to be
questions about,
ignored, because, we have a lot of requests and not that much money.
Totally, completely agree. Any other questions about Oasis?
I think you did a good job. Thank you.
All right. The next project is, so Central Oregon Villages submitted 2 applications, but this one is for their safe parking program. And so Central Oregon Villages is proposing to provide safe parking at the former Don's House location off Dean Swift Road. That is private property, it's privately owned. And so, this is like, there's already, this program was offered at that site before, and since Don's House has kind of ratcheted back their offerings, this is a provider trying to kind of step in and get those units back online. And so they'd like to expand their safe parking program. Central Oregon Villages has already contacted the property owner, and it seems like, there's some interest in working together, and they're proposing 6 sites. The amount requested, again, that's the startup costs and 1 year of operations would be $210,000. And I think it would, and then the questions relate to that cost amount. There is some reference to like mini units and some buildings that are on the site as well. And I think the review team wanted to get a little bit more clarity on the proposed use, if some of those are habitable, and if there would be more than just 6 safe parking sites. So just a little bit more information needed.
So they actually say the cost for a 2-year period is 210,000. If you read.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I was going, okay. So anyway, that's what in their detail says. So that does, that's a little more helpful.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you for calling that out.
Just looking at the numbers.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the review team also recommended that this project move forward and is shovel ready.
And then there's actually, considering what's happened with Don's legal trials, there's no problem here, right? It isn't that his property is beyond that. So
No, there's a new executive director for Don's House, and so I don't think that there's any concern about that at this
Okay,
time.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions online?
All right. So now we're moving into the tier 2 projects. So this is another application from Central Oregon Villages, and this proposal is for a tiny home village. The location of this project would be south of town in Bend at the 61071 Highway 97 South. It is City of Bend property. It's that property just below the Les Schwab, south of town, kind of across from Super Guru. Central Oregon Villages proposes offering a 20 to 40 unit tiny home village in South Bend. In their application, they shared a phased approach, starting with 10 units and building up from there. One of the main reasons why this was put in a potentially needs more information category is that Central Oregon Villages notes in their application that there is some robust opposition that has been prepared already. So just wanted to call that out. There is potential to move that, in the application that Central Oregon Villages submitted, they talk about how the Desert Streams Church, where their current tiny home village is located, the lease has 18 more months. And so there's potential, if that doesn't get renewed, that they would operate all of the tiny home village. They would move those units from that location over to the south end of town as well.
Do we know if that's a given, that they're not gonna be able to get their lease renewed? I mean, I've heard it, that comment, and I'm just wondering, is that really what's happening there?
I don't know. And in the application, they didn't say that they wouldn't get renewed. I think they're just thinking ahead.
Okay, Amy.
There's an option, and I'll defer to Nikki. The church has been willing to extend.
They will extend, but we don't know how long. Potentially 1 year. I asked for 3 years, but they're unwilling. They're still in negotiations with their elders about how long to extend.
Thank you so much for being here and answering that question. So 1 year on top of the 18 months then?
Our lease ends October 5th is when the city, we signed a contract with the city. So October 5 of 2025 is when our lease and contract with the city.
Okay. And then, okay, great. Thank you so much.
And so the amount requested, startup costs in 1 year of operations would be $1 million. Some of the other questions from the review team were, in the application, it was stated that there are currently limited amenities, limited access to water and power. And so folks had questions about the utilization rate of high barrier tiny homes with limited hookups. I mentioned the opposition, and so there was another question of kind of the level of comfort that public partners would have supporting potential legal defense or just considering that. So this was a recommended project, but may need more information before moving forward. Are there any other questions about this project?
Thank you.
All right. The next project that was submitted was from Mountain View Community Development. And Mountain View submitted a more of a general application requesting funding to expand their safe parking program. They did not provide a specific location, but they said that they're interested in working in Bend or Redmond. And they will work with the landowner to decide what is most needed and where. And so the description of what was submitted is just an application more to indicate their interest in working with local governments to expand safe parking versus this is what we want to put and where. They did not provide detailed budget information. They said it would depend on the site. And so the questions from the IR team are, interested parties are going to need to have more conversations with Mountain View to gauge kind of the cost per client, site design, and see if what they've proposed will work. So this was recommended to move forward in conversations, but obviously would need more information.
So would Bend or Redmond say, okay, we want that, and then go to Mountain View and say, okay, let's talk?
Yeah.
How that would work, since it's so vague?
Yep, and I'll get to next steps from this process a little bit later in the presentation. But yeah, specifically this one, it would be a little bit of, okay, partners on the board, Mountain View has indicated that they're interested. And so it would be kind of empowering local governments to begin conversations with them. And this coordinated office and staff are happy to help facilitate those conversations.
And in their statement of work, they do make reference to the 45 acres in Redmond.
Mhm.
And I did have a conversation with Rick Russell this morning just about this. So, I would hope that they would, when we get done making all these decisions, that would be considered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any comments? Kat, did you want to say anything? No? Thank you.
Okay, and so now we're moving into the tier 3 projects, which are not recommended to move forward at this time. And so the first project in tier 3 is from Gales Brothers LLC. This is a project that's been talked about in these meetings in the past. So
I have a whole folder on the Gales Brothers.
So the Gales Brothers are proposing to develop a safe parking program east of Bend off of Hamby Road. It's property that's outside the urban growth boundary. So it's not within city limits, but it's proximate, and the property is privately owned. And the Gales Brothers, they want to, they run a construction company and they want to develop the safe parking site themselves, but they don't have experience operating safe parking programs or serving folks experiencing homelessness. And so they're proposing to contract with a provider to provide all the services there, but they're interested in building it. They're also interested, given the city of Bend's safe parking code, they're interested in partnering with the local government to kind of sponsor the program, because that would allow them to host more safe parking sites at the location. So the city of Bend's code says that if a nonprofit or a religious entity is going to host safe parking, it's 6. And I think that the limit goes up to 20 if it's like a public entity, or there's maybe no limit and it's discussed. So anyways, they're interested in partnering with a public entity to offer that site. The amount requested for startup costs in 1 year of operations is $729,000, but the budget doesn't include fees contracting with providers. So that's something that the reviewers wanted more information about. There were other questions about the time involved with the zoning change. So one of the things that was called out in the application is that it's currently not an allowed use to offer a safe parking program on their property. And the applicant had requested $20,000 to go through a zoning change with Deschutes County. And the reviewers had some concerns about the timeline, given that those zoning changes can take years. And right now, the main bucket of funding that's been identified to support this is utilizing ARPA dollars, which have a timeline when they have to be spent. So there were some concerns there. There were some concerns about the partnerships. There isn't anything that's formalized right now. And so reviewers wanted to see a little more formalized partnerships as to who would be the operator. And also an interest in what Plan B is if there isn't a public agency that's willing to partner to make that, to operate it so that they could get those expanded numbers. So kind of, yeah, just what their thoughts were, if a county or city weren't willing to partner to operate it. And so this project is not recommended to move forward at this time for those, because of those questions, but the reviewers were definitely wanted me to make the point that they're not saying it'll never work. They're just saying that given the funding that we have available and the quick timeline that we want to move forward with, that this project is probably not in the 1 to 2 year range.
Am I wrong? I mean, there's no actual way the city of Bend could do this. It would have to be the county, right? I mean, I can't.
I don't know. Yeah, we wouldn't really contract for something outside of the city.
Yeah.
It would be odd.
But the good news is, they're between 2 churches, and if the property or the land can be rezoned with the churches included in that rezoning, that is an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I know they're working on it.
They are.
So Patty, I have a question, Counselor Zwicker.
Yes.
It is between 2 churches, but there's a significant solar array surrounding that property. Are there any secondary, I know we have considerations when we look at relocating and rehousing people based on health and safety. And I didn't know if that would have a negative impact down the road that we had not considered.
Right. Haven't, that's a good point to bring up. When I've been on the property, it seems like the solar is not like right next to it. It seems like it's down the road. I mean, what are the dangers? How close is it to be considered dangerous? Do you have that figure? Like their application actually said they were 1 mile from the UGB. No, they are 1/4 of a mile. It's 1,420 feet, I believe. So in their application, I'm like going, I think I should have read that and, updated it for, because they're really just right outside.
Oh, yeah.
UGB.
Yeah.
And it's at a mile in the report on several occasions. So, Kat, if you have any information, let me know.
I don't, it was just a curiosity. I did the same thing I think you did. I looked at it on a mapping system and I thought, well, that might be something we should consider. Just because, I mean, I do know that there's a proximity for housing, but then you're in specific shelter and actual housing with specific, wall widths, insulation, roofing. So I don't know, that would just be a good question to ask as we continue down that path.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Kat.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
I recall many months ago, as a standalone site, these are all the zoning, those are all important factors, and the governor's office wasn't willing to consider this property as a standalone site, but possibly as a package of sites. There may be some state action. I don't know if it would be the governor's office or the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Depending on the actions today, is it worthwhile if some of the sites are selected inside city limits to propose that package back to the governor's office or back to DLCD to say, okay, now this isn't a standalone site, this is a package of sites, or this is a more comprehensive proposal. Now is this something that the governor's office would be willing to consider and to support with some administrative or legislative executive action to?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what actually governor has in mind, but I do remember her response to the letter that was sent by the county and the cities of Bend and Redmond was basically do something in the UGB first, like kind of exhaust all options. And then once we've done that, she'd be willing to have a conversation about it. And so I do think, these recommendations are identifying some of those within, I think they're all in the UGB. Yeah, like within the UGB kind of projects that we can accomplish right now, that'll tee up potentially a conversation with the state, after maybe the tier 1 projects are done, as to, okay, and that's why we put in the at this time in the recommendations, because the review team was very clear to say, like, we're not saying that this couldn't happen or that we don't like this. It's just at this current time, there are other priorities that are probably higher on the list.
Well, we definitely need this size of account somewhere that's, really well managed. So yeah, I appreciate that saying move forward, not at this time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions about this application? All right. Okay, and now we're moving into, so 2 project submissions, both from one organization called Home More Network. The first is a safe parking program. And so Home More Network is proposing a safe parking program along Huntington Road in Lapine, which is on Deschutes County owned property. And so Home More Network proposes offering a safe parking program in Lapine in order to expand the number of units. Similar to the Gales brothers, Home More Network proposed partnering with a local government to get around the 6-unit minimum. But I think one thing that's important to just call out is actually the city of Lapine doesn't have a safe parking code. And so that was a bit of an extrapolation, I think, from the city of Bend's code. And really, sorry, okay, so the amount requested was $349,000. That's for startup costs and 1 year of operations. And some of the questions from the review team were, is the proposed project actually allowable under the city of Lapine's code at this time? And also, is there a site that's less temporary that could work? And so the Huntington Road property is, if I remember correctly, it's part of a larger property, and some of that had been I think allocated to like Habitat for Humanity. It's part of an area that the city's developing out. And so there was some concern from the reviewers that we'd be spending a fair amount of money to develop something that would likely go away after a few years. And there may be locations that are better suited for a program like this that could be more permanent. So for those reasons, the reviewers put this project in not recommended to move forward at this time. Are there any questions?
No comments? No comments? Okay, thank you, Chris.
Okay, and then the final project, the other submission from Homeware Network is for a managed camp or long-term visitor, long-term visitor area at Juniper Ridge on county-owned property only. And so the description of this project is that Homeware Network proposes establishing Juniper Ridge as a long-term visitor area. The proposal involves a phased approach and would create a system to monitor who is residing in the area, as well as provide opportunities for services to be provided with an emphasis on exits towards permanent housing. The amount requested was $1.7 million for startup costs and 1 year of operations. The questions from the review team were how many spaces or units would be provided. There was some reference to, I think, a number around 200. And so wanting to get a little bit more clarity on how the phases would work with how many people are included in each phase. Other questions from the review team are, would Homeware Network be willing to embark on a more measured or phased approach, given that this is a huge undertaking? Another question was, does Square One, which is a nonprofit in Eugene, have capacity to physically come to Central Oregon to support creation of the proposed program, or would they be offering advice from Eugene? And then how will Homeware Network be able to overcome staffing challenges? Currently, to my understanding, they have one full-time staff person, or maybe even part-time. So this proposal specifically was incredibly detailed. And so I just really wanted to emphasize that this is not recommended to move forward at this time. But it's clear that the applicant put a ton of time and effort and thought into the application.
And these are the 50 acres that Captain Bailey took me on a tour, like a month ago, I guess it was on a Monday. There are still 14 campsites there, and there is still, like, I believe, a chop shop there with maybe like 16, 18 cars parked around it, which I believe it's being worked on. So, and it's definitely cleaned up from a year ago, but it is clearly challenging what is surrounding, and you see a lot of signs that say you don't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I appreciate Jessica doing all the details she has, and maybe, we can see what happens.
Yep.
But she has put a lot of thought into it, and
She
I
really
know
has.
she actually has the other plan that she has the grant from for China Hat
Mm-hmm.
that she's doing, so.
Yep.
All right.
Are there any other questions or comments about this proposal? Alrighty. So the next steps of this process, so we've kind of reviewed the recommendations. You all got the packet with the information on Friday, so hopefully we all had plenty of time to kind of look at everything. There's more detail as well included in the packet. And so what we're really hoping for is a vote of the board to either accept or reject the recommendations. And then what staff proposed as kind of the next steps of the process, kind of what I alluded to earlier, is we have a range of projects that have been proposed in a variety of areas. And in order to get the questions to the answers that the review team thought were important, we don't think doing a big general RFP is the right approach for this. And so we're proposing that individual entities, either landowners or funders, would move forward empowered with this broader recommendation from the board with the projects that they're interested in pursuing.
So let's talk about money.
Yeah.
We've talked about, pooling the money for this, if the process goes through each district, or, how does that work? How does the money part come into play? Is each district responsible then for coming up with this money, which I know is going to be very difficult? How do we go forward?
Has anyone else committed other than the county commissioners for 1.5 million?
I believe that the city of Bend and Redmond had both committed like infrastructure type funding to support, but yeah, my understanding is that currently Deschutes County commissioners are the only ones that have set aside like a flexible pool of funding to support this work. And so I think that's a really important point. It feels like, you know, there's an opportunity for cities to partner with the county, but it seems unlikely that, right, like the city of Bend would partner with the city of Redmond to do something. And so I think kind of in that regard, you know, the recommendation of the board is hopefully a powerful mechanism to encourage collaboration between the county and city governments on projects. But ultimately, yeah, I think the office could do a really good job in helping facilitate some of those conversations or helping move those conversations forward. But yeah, ultimately the office has limited resources, and so and the office can't induce or require the county to participate either. So
That's, yeah, I mean, it's challenging how it started with the CHRO and then, but the money was in the pool and yeah, cause. Okay.
Yep.
Well, because of your analysis, I would be comfortable in tier 1 and tier 2 projects to see if they can come back. And I know like the tier 2 from Mountain View needs some details because he doesn't have the dollars in his initial RFQ. So, but that's that seems, we desperately need something. We have a nightmare, and we have got to bring more capacity to our region. And then the other fact that I will mention today, our vacancy apartments are now up to 11% in Bend. But talking to some people in the know, usually people from homeless people don't have a credit score of at least 600, or they have some kind of outstanding debt. But the fact that it's now 11% vacant, you're seeing the signs. I'm sure if you're not driving, you're definitely seeing the signs. That I'm hoping that we can find a way to help some of those people that do have a credit score right on the line, that we can find them a place to live where they can go into one of those apartments and, but having services is still important for those individuals, I believe. Just talking to Habitat, the new director said she's really worried in a couple of years, people need to have personal finance training. She goes, in 2 years, I'm afraid no one is going to be able to actually qualify for Habitat houses because they don't have the wherewithal to understand what a budget is and all those other critical things. You saw they're working with the kindergartners now, but I'm thinking like we need to do what Mid-Oregon Credit Union's doing and work in the high schools.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really important point, right? That time is of the essence, right?
Right,
It is
it is.
May, we're coming into the hot season. It would be really great to do something sooner than later. And so I think the reason staff are recommending an approval today of the IR team's recommendations and then moving these conversations forward with the entities that have the authority to make commitments is that we can hopefully get through these questions a little bit quicker and could hopefully get some partnerships formalized before we're in fire season and things are are a little bit more dire. And so really I think what you said is really important, right? Like those tier 2 projects, we do need a little bit more information, and staff and the review team felt that the entity that would be entering into the ultimate contract with that partner, like we all acknowledge that there's a little bit more information, and it's probably best for that entity to ask the questions versus maybe having the CHRO ask questions, and then maybe like Deschutes County still has other ones that still didn't get answered in the first round. And so I think the emphasis on trying to get things sooner than later is why we're asking for direction today.
So if we do tier 1 and tier 2, I'm just trying to figure out, we've got Redmond, but that's county, Bend or Redmond. Yeah, okay.
If tier 2 considerations were to successfully answer whatever questions the independent review team had, would they be ascended to tier one considerations, or would this have to go through another review process?
No, I don't think we would change where folks are in the tier process. The tiers are more to signal to like the CHROs, local
What
government.
would make tier two considerations viable then if they weren't ascended? You know, what would make them?
It's more a signal for the CHRO to tell, like, I'll use this as an example because Amy's here. Tier one recommendations are hopefully like, okay, City of Bend, like this project, we've all looked at it, we all think it's shovel ready. And then for like a tier two project, it would be, hey, we think this is a really good idea. Here's some questions we had. What other questions do you have? But not that once they answered those, it would change. It's just a little bit more of like I don't know, slightly more risk in terms of timeline or something like that. If
So
it
then
makes
they
sense.
would go into like a secondary consideration pool is what you're saying?
I think both tier one and tier two projects would be recommended to move forward.
Right.
And so
That's what I was getting at.
they would be under full consideration. So
Right.
it's completely possible that Mountain View meets with somebody at the City of Bend or Redmond and says, I want to do this right here. And they're able to say, great, we don't have any other questions, go forth and conquer.
Right, because that's what I was getting at. If we want to get as much done as possible,
Yep.
we need to either, you know, ascend these where they're all viable
Yep.
or something.
Tier one and tier two are both viable projects. One is just, you know, like Oasis Village, for example, has pads laid. They own the or they're leasing the property already. It's like, we have control. If you showed up with shelters tomorrow, boom, we could start installing them. Whereas Mountain View is a little bit more like, we want to do, and I'm just using these for examples. You know, we want to do safe parking, but we don't exactly know where. We don't exactly know what the site design would look like quite yet. And so that's why we put them in that. We still think it's a good idea and should move forward. But it might just take a little bit more time.
But they did cite the 45 acres within their statement of work.
Yep.
So, and the Don's House one, you know, it definitely looks like it could be ready to go sooner rather
Yep.
than, you know.
But like, yeah, that's another great one. For example, like they don't actually have the lease signed yet, right? So
Right.
there are some little hurdles that we'd still have to overcome. Yep.
But
I have a
that was
question.
actually for one.
Yes, it was.
Yes, Andrea.
Yes, I had excuse me, a couple of questions. Patty, how much has the county, how much funding has the county authorized for this?
1.5 million. We had 2 million, but I honestly, I wanted to keep some of it back just to be safe. You never know what we're gonna need our funding for, you know, with the way the economy is.
And those are out of ARPA funds?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and my other question is, it sounds like what we're doing today is recommending, looking over what has been looked at and saying, yes, we agree with it, so that when those projects go to the city or the county and say, okay, we're ready to move forward, what more do you need to know, and are you willing to fund it? But we're not actually authorizing these programs.
Exactly.
That's what I would, how I would understand it to be. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for that excellent description.
Okay, thank you.
I would just, I mean, coming back to the money again, I think that would just, in the spirit of collaboration, it would be nice if once that step 3 is done, that a lot of that collaborative process could be through the CHRO. That makes sense. That these discussions could be had at the CHRO, since this was initiated by the CHRO.
Yeah.
Would that be, Megan, follow-up conversations? These discussions have been had and the City of Bend or Lapine are working this, and this, more of a sharing than our body giving management and oversight? Because I'm not sure that's our job.
Oh, yeah, no, I was talking about, you know, the City of Bend says, okay, we want to do these 3, you know, but we don't have the resources in the City of Bend, financial resources to do these 3. Can we bring it to the CHRO and have the discussion about financial needs? That's all.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the county has definitely we have our issues with the, the land exchange with the DSL. And we've got that issue, and then we've got Juniper Ridge, which is another issue, but we are all in this together.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you need a motion?
yeah,
I vote to accept the tier 1 and tier 2 recommendations.
I second that.
thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is unanimous. All right. Thank you very much. We're only 6 minutes overdue.
And I'm the next presenter as well.
Okay, so good, Chris.
I'll keep it short and sweet.
You've got 1 minute less.
Okay, and so we're here now to talk a little bit more just about the strategic plan generally. This is an almost 1 year in review as the strategic plan was formalized last August. And so it's a little bit of a refresher. The CHRO was submitted, as I just said, to the state of Oregon and adopted in August of 2023. It was informed by work done by the Emergency Homelessness Task Force and very much supported by Mickey, which was huge. It was also, the strategic plan was informed by community member and service provider input, and ultimately from the vision of the Coordinated Office Board. The strategic plan has a 5-year time horizon and lays out 5 major priorities. And I'm just going to go through those priorities really briefly overall, and then a little bit of a reflection on what we've accomplished. And so priority 1, as a refresher, is engage the whole community. And there's really 2 main components to that, community engagement and supporting philanthropy. Priority 2 was initiate the coordinated houseless response office. And so that is, creating an advisory board, alignment with the continuum of care, establish funding to support ongoing operations. Our third priority is expanding services for people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. And those priorities, we identified developing and increasing funding streams, increasing the size of the pie rather than forming and competing, supporting service providers, expanding access to services, and supporting the development of authorized camping spaces. Priority 4 is addressing the crisis of unsheltered homelessness specifically. So really that emphasis of unsheltered homelessness, which follows kind of the Governor Kotek's emphasis. And so looking at reducing the burdens of unsheltered homelessness while folks are living unsheltered. Focusing on emergency weather response, enhancing data, and improving access to all different types of shelter. And then finally, our 5th priority is improving access to affordable housing, because we know we can't shelter our way out of homelessness, right? We have to put people in homes. And so really there finally is just supporting affordable housing development. And I thought that this was just important to talk about as we kind of finalize those recommendations from the RFQ, because a lot of the work we've done has really aligned with the strategic plan, which is wonderful. I put these kind of tough to see and kind of grainy boxes or triangles underneath some of the accomplishments we've made. And you'll notice on the agenda that we're going to start a process of indicating which agenda items kind of relate to each item of the strategic plan, so that folks have a little bit clearer idea of what we're trying to connect, and then we're a little bit more like the agenda is more focused on the strategic plan as opposed to just regular random presentations. And so this is just showing some of the things that we've accomplished in almost since August of 2023. And so early this year, we passed the bylaws, which fits under strategic priority 2, establishing the office. We added the Homeless Leadership Coalition and Neighbor Impact to the board, which shows that alignment with the continuum of care. Later this year, we worked with public partners in the community, Forest Service, ODOT, Sheriff's Office, Bend and Redmond and Deschutes County and COIC and the parks, and the HLC, tons of people, to get to a baseline level of understanding about what homelessness looks like in our community, which I think speaks to priority 1, which is engaging the whole community. And then priority 3, which is trying to figure out what we're gonna do to serve the folks that are experiencing homelessness, in our national forest lands. Earlier this year, we submitted a letter to the legislature about Senate Bill 1530, advocating for maintaining shelter funding, which is right in line with strategic priority 4. And then we just recently submitted that letter of request to the HLC to partner on data transparency, which also aligns with strategic priority 4. And then you all just made recommendations to move forward with the RFQ, which speaks to those expanding services, expanding access to all types of shelter that are found in priorities 3 and 4. And so I just wanted to do a little bit of a reflection on the work that we've done together over the past year and change, and just show that it may not feel like it every day, but we are making progress towards our strategic plan.
What a perfect time to make a comment. Thank you, Chris. Chris is going to be moving on.
Yes.
And but he's not moving far, so that's the really good news. And thank you so much for being our coordinator this entire time, since
Absolutely.
August of 23.
Yeah, since before August of 23.
Well, that's
Yeah,
Thank you, Chris.
yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I brought the donuts in your honor, right?
Thank you.
I knew there was a really good reason. Anyway, no, thanks, Chris, how much, because when I first started, he was the intern in Deschutes County, so it was really great, and then wonderful to see him come back, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Seen us through some times.
Yeah. Alrighty, and that is all I have for you all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, you.
Can I make one, I think that's really, thank you for that, that's really helpful, because,
Yeah.
oftentimes it's like, we wonder, are we actually doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's good to see. And I would love to also start looking forward a little bit too, and was hoping that, not only the pot of money that we still have in the CHRO, which is, I think, is a future conversation, but also, thinking about guidance from the state about what they want to see with future iterations or enhancements to regional solutions. And so I was hoping that maybe in June, we could maybe have someone from the state or the LOC or something to come to talk to the CHRO about the view from the state.
Yeah.
That would be
Absolutely.
okay with everybody.
Can do.
Great,
Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
thank you very much. Okay, we do now have time for community updates for a few minutes. Any raised hands? Community updates? No one in the room? Dan?
We're just working through our infrastructure project, it went from 23 million to 47 million, so, thankfully, they've offered to loan us more money to do it, but unfortunately, that'll cost the citizens a lot more money, so, one way or another, it'll all get done. That's kind of where we're at.
That was the one number that went down in our fee schedule yesterday, was the cost, the building costs. The state actually set up the number that it was down 1%. So maybe that's a very teeny trend on building. Anyone else? Kat? Yes, Andrea?
Our Habitat for Humanity of Sisters has gotten a sizable grant from the state to do affordable and workforce housing. So if it can work, all the projects can work their way through the system. We'll have the housing that you were talking about, which is, we can't shelter our way out of houselessness. We need someplace for them to go. So we're working mostly on that end of it, and it's looking very positive right now. So hopefully we can get those houses up and running. Thank you.
How much was it? Might I ask?
It's millions, but
right, I know. I read it.
I think it was 4.5 was the total, but I don't know that all the projects are going to make fruition. So, we're hopeful though. And given, I think it was only a 25 million package, we felt very blessed that we were able to get that much out of it.
for the fabulous town of Sisters at, what is it? 3,200 people, I think. So that's great.
Closer to 3,800.
Oh, we're not 38. Oh,
Yeah.
one of my friends thinks there's 15,000 there, but okay. 3,800. I love it. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other?
I would just like to, for those of you who may have heard, we just had an amazing speaker come into town, Dr. Colburn, who wrote the book, Homelessness is a Housing Issue, and he gave some really incredible remarks, really insightful remarks, with a lot of data in them. And I believe you can still watch that lecture on the, what is it, the Building a Better Bend website. They have the lecture there, or you can read his book, but I do the lecture. It's much more fascinating.
What was his name again?
Dr. Greg Colburn, Colburn, and the book's called Homelessness is a Housing Issue. Housing problem. Thank you. Sorry. And Hayden and Polish were the ones that sort of got him to be here.
And I'm happy to send the link to Chris. If he wants to.
Thank you so much. If you could do that, Amy, thank you, thank you. Okay, I think I've already talked enough for the county. All right, we should go ahead with public comments. I know we have a couple. Ashley, do you want to go first? Because I told you you could get a couple minutes today.
I'll lead you through a little exercise if you'll entertain my idea. Everybody close your eyes for just a moment. And I want you to think about the worst thing in your life you've ever done. Maybe it was something really big. Maybe it was something small. Maybe you lied, stole, cheated, or betrayed somebody that you loved. Whatever that feeling was, I just want you to think of the feelings it brings up when you marinate on that. Shame, guilt, regret, remorse, sadness, anger. Now, shame is a heavy coat to wear, and regret, well, it isn't all that comfortable either. Now, I want you to open your eyes.
Ashley, you need to introduce yourself. I said
will.
Ashley.
I will. Ashley Smith. Ashley Smith, I'll introduce myself. I want you to open your eyes and I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to turn to the person next to you and I want you to tell them what you did. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to ask you to do that because that would reduce you to a person that could be given a label that nobody likes or deserves. You see, the women that I walk alongside on a regular basis, they've been given labels since they were wee little girls. Poor white trash, smelly trash, junkie, tweaker, whore, slut. Yeah, those are some strong words. And when you carry them around long enough, you start to embody them. Wearing a coat of shame is a lot like carrying around a heavy, tattered cloak that wraps around you. It's woven with threads of regret and the weight of past mistakes. It clings to you, this invisible shroud, that only whispers of moments you wish you could undo. Each fold is a reminder of lessons that could be learned through trials of self-discovery. Have you ever worn a coat of shame? If not, have you ever met somebody personally that has? My name is Ashley. I run a nonprofit called Imperfectly. And we offer leadership development for women who are overcoming homelessness, addiction, domestic violence, and or human trafficking. It is my greatest wish to walk alongside these women along their journey of self-forgiveness, allowing the growth of this opportunity to shed the coat of shame and the chill of remorse. We do this by partnering with local organizations housing this demographic. And we teach them education that helps them to sustain long-term their house, their health. And we teach them 4 main categories. We teach financial literacy. Everything revolves around a budget. Communications, career development, and health and nutrition. And we track everything in our SMART goal setting software called Leapsome. It's extremely powerful and we've seen transitions happening. But here's the thing, friends, it's not necessarily what we teach, that matters.
but it's the manner in which how it's done that's made all the difference. And I can't wait to share that with you more next month. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you were great. Just like 5 seconds over. Thank you. So that she will give her presentation next month, but I really wanted you all to realize what she's doing, what people that she's working with, and the difference she's making. It's so critical how we can help people find themselves, or really change their persona. Thanks. And she has her degree from the University of Georgia in communications. Is that what it is? Yes. Yeah, she's a bulldog. All right. Okay, any other comments today from anyone in the room, please? Any raised hands on Zoom?
Yeah, I have Linda Murray.
Okay, Linda. Okay, are you on Zooming, on muting, whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, we actually got back on time. Oh, that's a shock.
Okay.
Talk really fast. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm calling in today to have a discussion or make a comment about something that was echoed in today's meeting by Commissioner Adair and Councillor Bloom and Councillor Perkins regarding the housing issue and how it's contributing to the homelessness problem in Deschutes County. And as Commissioner Adair said, the current vacancy rate for market rate apartments in Bend is about 11% from what we've been told. And that's likely to get worse with, I think, almost 2,000 new units and apartments coming online in the next several months. There's a significant segment of the homeless population based on data that we've seen and heard that has been forced out of housing because of the high rental rates. These are good employed people who just don't have the means to pay these rents. To get these deserving people off the street and out of the woods, here's an idea. It's been brought up before, but I wanted to revisit it again in this format. Since the vacancy rate is near 11% and getting worse, why don't we find a way, either through grants or through county money, city funds? I mean, you all know the source of funds better than I, where we can subsidize rents for these people and fill the empty apartments and get them off the street. There's a significant portion of our homeless who are basically plain and simple working poor, and maybe they have the credit scores that are just on that margin that they can't qualify on their own, or maybe they can't get in because they don't have the money for the deposits. So we're proposing the following: contact the local apartment owners and get them to commit 10% of their spaces for qualified individuals and families. Set the rent at $900 for individuals for a 1-bedroom, or $1,100 for 2-bedroom for families or women with kids. Have the county, cities, grant organizations supplement each apartment to the amount of $600 to $700 per month. That would be for 12-month leases with qualified tenants. The qualified tenants could be or should be drug and alcohol free, vetted by the same folks who vet occupants for the high barrier shelters. The tenants must be employed. They should not be sex offenders nor severe criminals, and they must agree to a code of conduct. This is a lot more economic than buying more old motels and fixing them up, and it utilizes existing infrastructure. Also, it provides income for otherwise vacant apartments. If rehousing is important, then this solution is a very economical way to rehouse deserving families and individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. If you'll send that document in, that would be good.
Sure.
Yes, because I know of apartments that have been vacant for quite a while, not the brand new ones, but older ones. And I would think if people are on the line, they have a credit score of, let's say, 570 or 575 or something, and people can take help a gamble and get them into housing where they can really find a way for their life. Anyone else in the room? Any other hands up?
Jessica Gamble.
Oh, good. Oh, Jessica, thank you so much.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can now, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I just have a quick question for the Bethlehem Inn and Redmond. I wanted to ask how they're helping people with vehicles.
Oh, they're helping with vehicles. Gwen,
Yes.
is that something you can answer?
That is, I know that we have some individuals that have gotten electric scooters. There is a new bus line that is going into effect in June. So we're situated in a place that really does offer some great transportation options. But in terms of vehicles, that is up to the individuals and their driving history. So it would be a good question for me to check in with our case managers, but it is an individual by individual basis.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. It just sounded like, at least in one of those news videos, that maybe that was a program you were offering. So I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. That's a good question. I know we were just talking that the county was going to donate to the sheriff's office a vehicle to Jericho Road. And just Sheriff Nelson and I had a conversation this morning. How do we donate it? You know, it's really, you can sell it for 2,000 and we are on a budget. So do we do that? You know,
We have a 1992 van for sale if anybody wants it.
how much is it?
Yeah,
How much is it?
$3,333.
And it's 90, how many miles?
A lot.
Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, so anything else?
I have one more person via iPhone.
iPhone, okay. Please identify yourself.
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, my name is Jenny Lingard, and I've greatly followed the homeless issues here in Central Oregon for more than a couple of years. So this week I performed homeless outreach with experts. They run shelters, they perform outreach, they're nonprofits, they're well-versed in homeless programs, including they were formerly homeless themselves. We went out to China Hat and Dirt World, and as Ashley from Imperfectly mentioned, I met some homeless women and children wearing that coat of shame. There was some very alarming conditions out there. I'm thankful that the Homeless Joint Office is seeking out additional shelter options. But my concern is it didn't appear when I went through the packet that the 45 acres adjacent to Central Oregon Villages was really explored, or didn't seem to have like interest in that property directly. That property is accessible like now. And so I'm kind of concerned that it didn't seem to be like intriguing local service providers' interests. So back to what I saw, specifically in Dart World, I saw women and children where they were extremely exhausted. Some of the adults, and including teenage girls, were addicted. They lost their hair. They lost their good energy. They were basically just numbed out, really beaten down people. The children that I saw were wearing no clothes. They had diapers. They had no shoes. Some of them should have already been potty trained. They literally sit on a piece of plywood, and that's their chairs when we were passing out little gifts and little snacks to them. They all had a crazy amount of mucus coming down their faces because they're so low to the dirt that they're inhaling dust constantly. I don't understand how CPS or Department of Human Services aren't out there helping the 7 children that I saw. They're just right off the road there in Dirt World. There was also, again, I was with experts, and they've been doing this for decades, and they're like, this is questionable. What we just encountered was 2 teenage ladies, barely clothed, 16, 17 years old, lost all their hair. They said likely from intravenous drugs, with a grown man who's definitely not their father. And I don't understand how the county or police hasn't helped the two children that should be in school and not in dirt world, barely clothed. So back to the 45 acres, I would really appreciate that it's really expedited, that flat land sitting right there, empty, and it's available.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. All right, we'll now adjourn the meeting for today. When is our next meeting? Do we have a schedule?
June
20th?
Yeah, I think it's June 20th.
June 20th. Okay, everyone, please check your calendar, the board, and make sure that that's a good day for you. Great. Thank you, and let us know. Oh.